Right. It's time to look now at how you package your software, and very closely aligned, of course, to pricing, and is an equally huge issue for startup software founders to get their heads around as well. I would also like to make a point at this stage that all of this is in our book, the Go-to-Market Handbook for B2B SaaS Leaders, and really want to say thanks to Andreas Paniotto of Notion Capital, who taught us an awful lot that we put into the book and then subsequently put into the video. But anything you sort of don't get is also in the book, so you can pick this up in sort of long form as well. But packaging your software, which I say is very close to pricing your software, is another tricky man trap that founders fall into. So it's absolutely right that we do a module on this. Because it's tricky, right? It's not straightforward, and there are a number of different ways that you can package up your software. But before you begin this exercise, there's a really important point to make, I think, here, which is understanding the value your software brings will help you define both how willing future customers are to pay and how much they're prepared to spend. So this is all about extracting value and understanding value from our existing customers. So when it comes to pricing, let's take a scenario that you've signed up 10 or 20 or 30 customers. Let's say a sense that you're sensing that you've kind of undercharged for your software. Then there's a really brilliant exercise that you can do, which I'm going to take you through now, which will give you a much clearer picture of the value that your software is bringing to that organization. And that'll tell you how much future customers are prepared to pay, and also how much an existing customer is prepared to spend, perhaps for more products down the line. So all will become clear as we dive into the exercise. So what's really clear straight out of the gate is the amount that you can charge for your software directly correlates with the amount of usage and the amount of perceived value. And we're going to plot usage and value on a graph in a minute. But the first job of work to do, and this is difficult if you don't have any customers yet and you are you're pre-revenue, pre-customers, you're going to have to guesstimate this. But if you've got customers, just as we said, that you need to go and get really intimate with your customers about pain and about the solution, you need to go back to your existing customers and spend a decent amount of time with them and ask them these questions. And you're going to find out in the next video, when we look at how and when to hire a sales team, that one of the roles that we recommend that you bring into the business very early on in your business's lifetime is customer services, and it often gets forgotten. And customer services teams often come along much further down the lifetime or the life cycle of a software business, and we think they should come in much earlier, because we want your CS team or a CS person, and if you haven't got one, you must do this, to go back to your customer, as well as making sure that the whole implementation is going well, and really analyze your software with the customer at their desk in their office. Now, you might be able to get some useful information from outside, but this is all about us plotting value. And what this allows us to do is set pricing when we know the value, and it also allows us to get our packaging right. And that is what this video is about. So go and sit with your economic buying persona, and go and sit with the person who is using your software all the time, and find out from them how many team members are logging into the software on a daily basis, how often they're logging in, and how many people are logging in, and which departments are these people in. Because is it the case that our software is only being used by one person in the organization? Or is it the case that actually there are multiple members of that organization that are using our software? Because the more people that are using it, clearly the stickier our product's going to be. If one person is using it and they decide they don't want to use it anymore, then we're out the door. which is bad news. But equally well, if only one person is using your software and you expected 10 or 12 or 15 or 20 people to be using it, you need to understand why they're not using it, because clearly they're not getting the value out of your product that they should be. But how many people are using it? We're trying to assess volume of usage, how often they're using it, and in which departments are they using it, and which particular features of the software that you've given them are they using and in what volume. So are they going in daily to look at a particular dashboard? Are they using an upload function, an export function? What are they using? Which features in your software are they using most? And which of those features do they find the most valuable? And there's a big difference between the two of them, right? They might be using the upload facility or the export facility all the time, 3 times a day, but actually the part of the software they find incredibly valuable is a different part, a different screen, which they don't use as much. And you'll see why this becomes relevant in a minute when we plot these on a graph. Equally well, do different personas in the business find different value in the software? And what I mean by that is, are the team members using the export, input, upload, export files, regularly, but actually, and they don't find much value in that. It's just a utility tool, very good utility tool, but they're just seeing it as a utility tool. And actually, is there an executive level here whereby there's an executive team? Ideally, it's the senior management team if you've got a really good bit of software, and they're diving into your dashboard of your software on a regular basis to look at things like how fast are we hiring, how fast are we procuring, how fast are we buying, how quickly are our products going to market. Hopefully you've got that dashboard in your product. If you haven't, build one, because anything that the senior management team look at a regular basis is invaluable. And if you have got executives looking at dashboards, and not very often, is there a kind of user level license we could be signing up for, a lot less than we're charging for an executive license? So maybe you sell your software as, 8 licenses for users and 6 licenses for executives, because there's 6 executives around the table, each of whom want to be able to log into your dashboard and see how they're getting on. Do you see what I mean? Really useful feedback. And then again, you're hunting for value, and you're hunting for the money, and you're hunting for the heartache. Where has this saved you time? Where has this saved you money? How much time and how much money has it saved you? Can you quantify that at all? Give me some stats. With the recruitment ones we've looked at across these videos are able to report that their time to hire has gone from 28 days down to 14 days. So they're hiring people, in half the time. That's a huge financial return for the business, because you can calculate, you can get some financial metrics around that about the 14 days of time they've saved. They've got somebody onto the shop floor 14 days quicker than they're used to. Enormous financial value. And you see how this gives you confidence in terms of your pricing when you know the value that it brings, not only for the customers that you've got at the moment, and you can defend your pricing or even increase your pricing, but definitely for future customers, because you know that your tool works. Your solution works and it brings value. And equally as important is which features are they not using and why are they not using them? So you design this incredible functionality that they're not using it. Is it because they haven't had any training on it and they don't know how to use it? And in your excitement of getting them live and getting the first check through the door and going through the implementation phase, you forgot to train them or even introduce that part of it? Or do they do know about it? They just don't find it valuable, nor do they use it ever. And what is it that they would love the software to do that it currently doesn't? Because is there something in there that people would turn around and say, do you know what? If it only saves me this upload of this Excel file, or it allowed me to integrate to this database, or this bit of tech we've already got in, that would be amazing. And you're going to say, okay, fine. Well, what value would that bring? Oh, it would just save us a load of time. How much time? Oh, it would save me 2 days a week of your time. 2 days a week? Wow. So 40% of your week would be saved if you had this functionality. Yeah. Okay. And you can then guesstimate what the financial value is of that in terms of that person's salary. It's huge. And you can go back to your product team and say, look, can we get this integration done, or can we build that? And it helps you, develop your product roadmap. So this is an incredibly important exercise for you to do once your customers are live, your first 5 or 10 customers are live, and you should begin 6 months in. And if you're watching this video and you've got hundreds of customers or dozens of customers and you haven't gone back and done this exercise, go back and do it straight away, because you will learn so much, not only about how you can defend your pricing, you'll find out how sticky your product is, you'll find out if they're thinking about getting rid of your product, you'll find out what they like, what they don't like, and what they would like you to do to develop it. And I can't understand companies that don't spend a massive amount of time with their existing clients establishing value. So these are the questions that you need to be answering. And you can create a fact find for yourself, you can draw it on a big piece of paper, and you go in. And do you know what? Your customers will appreciate so much you spending a day with them to establish these things. But critically, what it allows you to do is to create this graph. And thank you to Andreas at Notion for giving us this graph, because it's a game changer. And on the left-hand side, on the y-axis, you're going to plot the value, the perceived value the customer has to a particular feature of your product, the dashboarding or the upload or the integration or whatever it is, right? And on the right-hand side, you're having the usage or adoption. Customers are using it a lot. Okay, so which features of customers used a lot and how often they're using it. Okay, so adoption and usage versus value. And where you find, and I'll actually maximize the screen here so you can absolutely see the graph well, because the writing is quite small. Where you find high adoption but low perceived value. So we're now looking at the sort of bottom right-hand corner of the screen down here, high adoption but low perceived value. This feature should probably be included when it comes to packaging up your products in all your packages as standard. This isn't a value add. There's no money to be made here. It's used by everybody, but they've got used to it and they don't see it as a high value item. It's a utility tool and they really like it. They're using it in their daily life. It adds some value, but it's not a kind of headline grabbing feature set they'll pay for. But when you go top right and they've got high adoption and high customer value, this is absolute gold dust, right? This is where lots of people are logging in and you've received feedback that the features are invaluable to the business. It's the win-win, right? Gosh, we go in this all the time and what the data we're drawing out and the insight it gives us is amazing. And it's this feature that should probably be included in a kind of premium version of your software. And we're going to talk about packaging in a minute and the different ways you can package your software up. But there's going to be a good, better, best at some point, right? But you now have the inside line that there's something in your set technology that not only is used a lot, but they value it. Your customers value it hugely. And you can charge more for this up here in the top right. And therefore, if you're giving it away in a kind of all-you-can-eat, all-inclusive package, you're leaving money behind. And any feature down the bottom left here where there's no adoption and the company also doesn't see value, low usage, low value, you should probably think about, dialing down your messaging here. And there's probably a strong argument for sunsetting this particular feature and saying, actually, I thought it was going to be good, but it's getting in the way of their understanding. Let's dial down the messaging. I'm not going to obsess about this bit. I can't see any value here. Interesting enough, where you see low adoption but high perceived value, this is a fascinating group, right? So not many people are using it, but it's seen as very valuable. This might be seen as an ideal add-on, either useful in a particular customer segment because one segment are using part of the product rather than others, or this is a kind of executive upsell, an executive license upsell, right? There aren't many people using the dashboards, half a dozen, 8 people, but they find them very valuable. And you might even take one of these packages and take this feedback and plan a campaign to this particular customer segment or this particular employee base, in this case, managers in an organization, because we know that whilst it's not used a lot, there's a small segment of the company that finds it very valuable. And if I was on the outside looking in, I bet that's the execs looking at a dashboard. So I really hope that helps in terms of understanding high value to customer and high customer adoption, and how if you go in and do that, it really helps when it comes to package and pricing your software. And hopefully you can see that. And again, reach out if you want more clarification on this, but it's just insight about your product, which you're not going to hear every day of the week. And this is high value stuff, guys. So I really hope you find that useful. And where it takes you next to is a place where you can start looking at how you package your software up, he says as he grabs his notes. Because when it comes to packaging software, there's a great deal to think about and a number of different ways in which you can do this. So let's have a look at different ways that software is packaged and the advantages and disadvantages of each. So let's start with all-inclusive. Okay, so all-inclusive is the only package version where every customer, all customers, and everybody that works in that customer, all the different personas, managers, users, everybody gets access to everything, right? This is the all-you-can-eat, and every customer gets the same. Doesn't matter which segment you're in. You could be in healthcare, you could be in heavy industry, you could be in retail. Everyone gets the same products. Everyone, it's a standard thing, and this is, very often a starting point for an awful lot of businesses. But the challenge here is this very different or very difficult to upsell anything, right? Because everybody's got everything already. They've got all you can eat, and it's very hard to cross-sell down the line because you've then got to go in and debundle things. But it's a great place to start, I think, in early stage software businesses, where you're trying to establish which features of the platform are most widely used, and more crucially, which features they don't value, and which features a small number of customers, personas value. And you get into that sort of top left area where you can start charging more for executive licenses, right? So very often all-inclusive is a good place to start, but I think you can start graduating fairly quickly into the next one across, which is good, better, best, which is used by an awful lot of companies to get maximum value out of their software and out of their pricing. And good, better, best is widely used by software businesses today. You'll advertise 3 payment levels, maybe starting with a freemium, then into a premium, and then up to an enterprise. It's very common if you look at a lot of software sites. And this is where you could begin to create a kind of objective and, unambiguous ranking of the packages based on the value that you now know the solution offers, right? So the freemium stuff you might give to the sort of, well-used but low value stuff. It's the kind of the standard stuff. It gets everybody using the software, but no real massive value is put in. And then you can start building features as you go up into the premium one, where you're adding in sort of different packages, and then sort of the price you can charge in premium is clearly higher than freemium, which by definition is free. And then suddenly, if you want to get up into the enterprise level where you're creating the dashboards, that's when you can start charging good money, because there's multiple personas in the business that will be using the software and finding great value from it. So that's good, better, best. And this packaging is sort of most widely and most frequently used because of its versatility. You can chuck different features of your software into different areas, and if you know where the most value is perceived, you can put those into the higher ticket items in terms of how your software is done. And it works particularly well where customers have they've all said that we've got the same problem. We've all got problems with importing data or exporting data or integrating to a particular technology. So everybody gets that. But they're also willing to pay for sort of more capabilities. And I think it's a really fascinating area, good, better, best, and worth exploring of this. And you could look like it in terms of a kind of airline ticket, where you get sort of economy, premium economy, and first class, or economy, business class, and first class. More features are coming in. In both jobs, you get from A to B, but you get more stuff in your good, better, best than you do before. And you need to decide which one of these packages you want to go for. You may well start with all inclusive, and you might well then move to sort of good, better, best down the line. I'll come back on so you're not just staring at a PowerPoint screen. The use case persona pricing is done where you're charging different licenses fees based on the persona and based on their usage of the product. Yeah. So you might say a user license is, you know, £10 per user per month, but an executive license is £30 per user per month, because you know there's high value in the fact they're looking at your dashboard every day and they're using it in strategic sessions at board meetings and so on and so forth. So you can charge different persona, different licenses. And it's great, but don't overcomplicate things in the early days. An administrator version might be, you know, lower than an executive version, but, you know, don't overcomplicate this. This is something you will graduate to as you do this research and as you know that you can get away with charging more. So let's say you find out that actually executives are finding great value. You're not going to put the pricing in for your existing customer, but you certainly could look at doing user pricing for the next customer you charge, whereby you have a team license of £10 a month and an executive license where they only want 3 at £30 a month, and you're building up the value like that. So that's what a use case persona is, and that's how you do it differently. Modular and functional are interesting, where you're actually selling only certain modules or only certain features of your product, and they do serve a particular purpose, because they differ subtly from the sort of use cases of selling the use case persona. Instead, you're aiming particular packages at particular personas, right? So you're saying, well, I'm going to sell you this feature to this group of personas, and this, you know, this feature to another group of personas. So you've got that kind of, you know, each feature. Let's say you have 5 different features within your solution. You know, one does data aggregation, one does single click uploads, one does dashboarding. You know, you've got 5 different features, and you're charging different amounts for each module. And that is becoming something that, you know, a lot of founders are looking at now as being something that's quite interesting. And you could also consider the sort of build your own car configurator model, right? Where you go in with like 20 options and the customer decides which options they want and then how many licenses they want on each option. And again, I think this is a more mature pricing model. It's certainly something you can do when you've got your first 30, 40, 50 customers, and you can graduate this. And it's kind of like a quote machine, right? And it's very good when you're doing, you know, comparable, you know, how good are you currently at this? We can be really good at this. Which one of these features do you want? And they go, well, actually, that's the one we need to fix now. We'll fix this one later. And that's where you do the sort of car configuration model, and a price comes out at the end. And again, you can do it, but, you know, be careful not to overcomplicate this model, because it's, you know, keep it simple, stupid is a great message to have at this point. Okay. And then finally, one which used to be quite rare, but is sort of now becoming more popular, is this consumption model, which is where you charge your customer depending on how much they, you know, how much they consume and how much they use. And you can imagine like AWS would be a classic case of a consumption model, where you're, you know, it's like a mobile phone. You're paying for the units that you use. And if you're drawing on data or you're diving into a database, and it's often used as an additional upsell or add-on to an all-inclusive package or a good, better, best package, whereby they're buying the fundamental licenses and then they're drawing down on a consumption basis, depending on how much bandwidth they've used or how many times they've taken their bucket to the well. And as I say, it used to be quite unusual, but is actually now becoming a much more popular model. It's a tough place to start, because you want to make sure you're getting paid something by your customer. You know, to go in straight out the gate for a consumption model is a brave thing to do. And I, again, see it as being there for the more mature software businesses as time goes by. But you need to be aware of it, because, you know, as and when you cross that bridge, there's clearly value in those hills. Well, I was working recently with a company, you know, it's working in the solar energy. They've got software working in solar energy. And clearly the consumption model works perfectly for them, because they're selling solar energy to heavy industrial companies. But they want to make sure they're getting paid for the software, the core dashboard, as well as getting paid for the consumption. Otherwise, you know, on a day that the sun doesn't come out, they're not getting paid at all. So hopefully this video has taken you through the different packaging options you've got. In all honesty, I would start top left if you're early stage. Don't over egg it and over complicate it down here until you're a much more mature business, and you know much more from your clients what they like and what they don't like. Absolutely, at whatever stage you are at, you must go and do that session with your customers to assess that value consumption basis. I think that will give you such a valuable insight and confidence in terms of what you can price and how you can then package your products based on usage and based on value. So I really hope this module on how to price your software and how to package your software, the 2 videos that are companion videos, has really helped, and it'll give you some food for thought in terms of where you go. Keep it simple, be brave, maybe start with all-inclusive, move to good, better, best, and as you mature, you can move to the kind of modular or use case pricing, ultimately into consumption. It all depends on how your software is created. Reach out to me. I'll give you some more information, answer particular questions you have. But as I say, I hope that's given you a really good overview of 2 very tricky subjects, which is pricing and packaging. And as always, has helped you stack the odds in your favor of getting your pricing and packaging right.